My freeloader girlfriend sold off everything I owned to pay her credit card, so I kicked her out. 3 years later, she came back to my door with a baby in her arms, calling it mine. I was with Sloan for almost 3 years and lived with her for the last year and a half. I'm a finished carpenter. I work out-of-town jobs that can run 6 or 8 weeks at a stretch, and the pay is good when the work is steady. Sloan didn't really work. She'd had 4 jobs in the time I knew her, and she'd quit or been let go from every one of them inside a few months. She kept saying she was still figuring out what she wanted to do. I paid the rent, the utilities, the groceries, her phone, her car insurance, and most of her gas. She told me she'd pay me back once she got her footing, and I told her I wasn't keeping score. I meant it at the time. 3 years ago in April, I took a custom finished job in another state. It was supposed to be 5 weeks and ran almost 8. I drove home on a Friday night, put my key in the door, and walked into a half-empty house. My father's 1962 Martin guitar was gone. He'd given it to me before he died. My grandfather's pocket watch was gone, the one he wore every single day of his working life. The coin collection my grandfather started for me when I was a kid, and that I'd added to every birthday for almost 20 years, was gone. My tools were gone. Every saw, every drill, every router and planer I'd built up across a decade of work. The garage was empty. Sloan was at the dining table eating sushi like it was any other Friday. She told me she'd handled a financial situation while I was away. She said she'd run her credit card up to around $19,000 and the minimum payments had gotten ahead of her. She'd taken everything she could carry to a pawn shop and a flea market across 2 weekends. She'd gotten about $4,000 for the lot. She said she felt much better now. I asked her if she understood what she'd just taken from me. She said I had insurance and could replace most of it. I told her to be out of the house by Sunday. Her idea was that I'd cool off by morning. By Monday, she was gone. The insurance covered the tools at depreciated value, about a third of what I'd paid, and most of the exact models had been discontinued. The guitar, the watch, and the coins weren't on any policy I had. The pawn shop had moved everything by the time I got there, and the flea market was a flea market. I never saw any of it again. I rebuilt the toolkit slowly across the next year and a half, and I didn't replace what couldn't be replaced. About a year after she left, I met Ren. She works for the county. We've been together 15 months, and she moved in over the summer. Last Saturday morning around 9, someone knocked on my front door. Ren was at her sister's for the weekend. I opened it, and Sloan was on the porch holding a baby in a carrier. She looked at me like she'd seen me yesterday. She lifted the carrier and told me the baby's name was Eli, that he was 7 months old, and that he was mine. She said she'd been trying to find me for a while and had finally gotten the new address through a mutual friend. She started talking like the conversation was already underway. She said she hadn't wanted to do it this way, but I'd blocked her number. She'd been staying at her sister's for the past year. Her sister was about to put her out, and she had nowhere to go with a baby. She only needed a couple of months to get back on her feet, and I owed her at least that much. I asked her what she thought I owed her. She said she'd carried my son for 9 months and raised him alone for 7, and that she'd done all of it without asking me for a single thing until right now. She said the baby deserved a family. She started going on about how I clearly had room for them, and told me to go and buy diapers and formula. I let her finish. Then I told her I'd had a vasectomy 2.5 years ago. Her face didn't change for a full second. Then she shifted the carrier to her other hip, laughed once, and said that wasn't possible because she had the paperwork from the clinic and a court date already set. She told me I'd be hearing from her lawyer on Monday morning. I called Abdul as soon as her car pulled out of the driveway. I already knew he was the mutual friend who gave her my address. He picked up on the second ring and didn't say hello. I asked him why he gave her my address. He said she'd reached out to him about a month ago, crying, saying she had my baby, and that all she wanted was to let me know I was a father. He said she sounded different, like she'd changed. I told him I'd had a vasectomy 2.5 years ago. The line went dead quiet. Then he said, she told me you two had been talking again. I said, Abdul, I have not spoken a single word to Sloan in 3 years. Not a text, not a call, nothing. He didn't have an answer for that. He said she also told him I'd reached out to her on social media a few months back, that we'd been texting, and that I already knew about the baby. Abdul believed every word of it. I told him every word was a lie. I'd blocked her everywhere the week she left my house 3 years ago. I asked if he'd told her anything else about me. He paused. Then he said, I might have told her your new girlfriend's name. My whole body got tight. I told him not to talk to Sloan again, not to answer if she called, and that if she reached out asking anything else, he needed to let me know right away. He said he was sorry about 6 times before I hung up. I sat there and let the picture settle. Sloan knew where I lived. She knew Ren's name. She'd built a whole fake backstory where I was the deadbeat avoiding my responsibilities. She'd been laying this out for weeks before she ever knocked on my door. That wasn't desperation. That was a plan. I screenshotted every page of my vasectomy paperwork and emailed it to myself so I'd have it in 2 places. I called the clinic and asked for a formal letter stating no reversal had been performed. They said they could have it ready by Tuesday. Then I called Ren. She was at her sister's, laughing about something when she answered. I said, something happened this morning and I need to tell you before you hear it from anyone else. The laughing stopped. I told her every part of it in order. The porch, the baby, the vasectomy, Abdul, the fact that Sloan had her name. She didn't interrupt once. When I stopped, she said, she sold your dad's guitar and now she wants to move into our house? I said yes. She said, I'm coming home tonight. I told her she didn't have to cut her weekend short. She said, I'm already packing my bag. I'll be there by 8. She wasn't asking. Ren got home a little before 8. She set her bag down by the couch and asked to see the records. She read every page slowly, then handed the phone back. She said, okay, what's her actual play? We sat at the dining table and worked it through. The baby was Sloan's way in. The paternity story was leverage to get through the door. Once inside, she'd make herself hard to remove, the same way she did last time. Get comfortable. Make the other person feel too guilty or too tired to push back. Ren put both hands flat on the table and said, she's not getting through this door, but we need to be smart about how we handle whatever she does next. We agreed on rules. No direct contact unless absolutely necessary. Document everything. Every call, every text, every visit. Porch camera stays on. Don't tell anyone the details until the clinic letter is in our hands. Ren said the letter mattered most because it was official and came from a medical office, not from me. By Sunday night, we had the records saved in 3 places. Then Ren said something I hadn't thought of. If there's really a court date, there's a filing. You can't take someone to court without paperwork. I can search local filings from work. Monday morning, my my phone lit up with a text from her at 9:14. Your ex just walked into my office with the baby. I called immediately. Ren kept her voice low. Sloan had walked into the county building, asked for Ren by name, and the receptionist had no reason to think anything was wrong, so she led her into the waiting area. Ren only knew Sloan was in the building because a coworker popped their head in and said someone was there to see her. Ren came around the corner and Sloan stood up smiling, said, I figured we should meet, woman to woman. Ren told her this wasn't the place. Sloan didn't move. She kept talking, loud enough for the lobby to hear. I just want what's best for Eli. His father should be in his life. Ren said, leave now or I'll call security. Sloan's face changed for a second, then she recovered. She picked up the carrier, adjusted the blanket over Eli like the most caring mother in the world, and said loud enough for every person in that room to hear, I just wanted his son to know his father. Then she walked out slow, the way someone walks when they want everyone in the room to feel sorry for them. Ren said her supervisor pulled her aside an hour later. Ren had kept it to personal matter being handled, but she could tell there were going to be questions. Ren works for the county. She takes her job seriously. She'd spent 4 years building a reputation as someone steady and competent, and now she had to sit in a building full of people who'd just watched some woman with a baby show up and give a speech about deadbeat fathers in the lobby. I met her at lunch. She was gripping a water bottle like she wanted to crush it. She said it right there at that table. She came to my job to perform. She didn't want to talk to me. She wanted witnesses. That was exactly what it was. Sloan wanted an audience. She wanted people to see the sad single mom being turned away. She wanted Ren to feel embarrassed and small enough to break, and she wanted me to hear about it and start to crack. I called the clinic from the table and asked if the letter could be ready sooner. They said end of day Tuesday. That night, Ren ran the county filing search. She typed in my name, then Sloan's, then both together. Nothing. No paternity case, no court date, no lawyer on record. The whole thing was fake. The lawyer, the court date, the paperwork she claimed to have from the clinic. All of it. I screenshotted the empty results page and saved it with the rest. That made 3 pieces of evidence. The vasectomy screenshots, the clinic letter coming, and proof Sloan had lied about a lawyer. Ren closed the laptop and said, she's got nothing. No legal case, no medical proof. All she has is nerve. Wednesday morning, my phone rang from a number I didn't recognize. Ren nodded. I put it on speaker. Sloan's voice came through softer this time, almost gentle. She said she'd made mistakes before, that selling my things was wrong, that she'd spent the last 3 years regretting it. She said Eli changed her. He looks like you. Everyone says so. I cut through it. Who is Eli's father, Sloan? She didn't hesitate. You are. I said, I had a vasectomy. I have the records. I have the confirmation letter. There is no court filing. There is no lawyer. What are you actually doing? The line went quiet. Then her voice came back, harder, flat. Vasectomies fail. It happens. Look it up. When the court orders a paternity test, we'll see who's lying. I knew the vasectomy was real, but vasectomies can fail in rare cases. And if she pushed hard enough to get in front of a judge, the judge might order a paternity test just to settle it. The filings, the waiting, the back and forth, that could take weeks. And it would cost money. My money. That was the play. Not to win. Just to drag me into a system that moves slow and costs a lot and hope I'd get tired enough to open the door. Ren slid a notepad across to me. It said, don't let her set the timeline. I picked the phone back up. If you want a paternity test, I'll take one tomorrow. Walk into any clinic, I'll pay for it. Let's settle this today. She said, that's not how this works. My lawyer will handle the details. I almost laughed. You don't have a lawyer, Sloan. There's no filing. We checked. The silence had weight. I could almost hear her recalculating. Then she said, I talked to Ren yesterday. She seems nice. I hope she understands what she's getting into. Being with a man who abandons his own son isn't a great look. My hand tightened around the edge of the table. I said, don't contact Ren again. She came back fast. Or what? You'll get a restraining order? Go ahead. That'll look great when I tell a judge you're trying to keep me away from everyone in your life. She said she'd be in touch. The line went dead. Ren and I sat with it. Then she said, she's cornered, and she knows it. That's when people like her get dangerous. Not physically. She'll just try to make this messy enough that you'll give in to make it stop. That was the whole strategy. Show up at my house. Show up at Ren's job. Call from unknown numbers. Tell anyone who'd listen that I was a deadbeat. Keep the pressure on, day after day, until the easiest thing in the world would be to just let her stay for a couple of months. And once she was in, she'd never leave. That's how it worked last time. Ren said, then we need to talk to Alea. She'd already pulled Alea's number off an emergency contact record through her county access. Alea picked up on the third ring. Her voice was cautious, like she'd been waiting for the call but hoping it wouldn't come. I said, this is Sloan's ex. I think you know why I'm calling. Long breath. Then she said, I was wondering when you would. Is she at your house? I said no. She said, good, don't let her in. That last part wasn't a warning. It was advice from someone who'd already learned the lesson. Then she started talking, and once she started, it was like a door opened she'd been holding shut a long time. Sloan had shown up at her apartment 13 months ago, pregnant, no job, no plan. After Eli was born, Sloan stopped doing anything. No job applications, no daycare research, no contribution to groceries or rent or diapers. Aaliyah was buying formula out of her own paycheck and coming home to find Sloan gone and Eli in his crib with a bottle propped on a rolled up towel. She said, I love my nephew, but I've been raising him more than she has. I told her last month she had 30 days to find somewhere else. That's when she started talking about you. I closed my eyes. I could see the whole thing laid out like a blueprint. Sloan got comfortable. Sloan stopped trying. The person housing her got fed up and gave her a deadline. And instead of figuring her life out, Sloan started scanning her memory for the next person she could land on. She picked me. Again, I asked the question I'd been holding. Who is Eli's real father? Alea went quiet. Then, his name isn't on the birth certificate. Sloan left it blank. There was a guy before she came to me. She told me once it didn't work out because he found out about the money stuff from your relationship and didn't want to deal with someone like that. She never told him about the baby. She told me one time she didn't want him in Eli's life because he'd ask for custody, and that wasn't a fight she was going to lose. I let that settle. Then I said, so she knows I'm not the father. Alea's voice dropped to almost a whisper. She knows. She told me 2 months ago she was going to find you and tell you the baby was yours because you had a house and a steady job. I told her not to do it. She told me to stay out of it. 2 months. She'd planned this for 2 months. She sat in her sister's apartment, on her sister's couch, eating food her sister paid for, while her sister watched the baby, and she spent that time figuring out how to use choose me. She picked me off a list because she remembered the last time she moved in, I let her stay a year and a half without asking for a dime. She thought that made me easy. I asked Alea if she'd put it in writing or say it to anyone who needed to hear. She said, if it comes to that, yes. But she's still my sister. I'm not trying to destroy her. I'm trying to stop her from dragging everyone else down with her. I thanked her and asked her to leave me a voicemail saying what she'd just told me. She did, 2 minutes later. Ren had been listening on speaker the whole time. She said, she picked you because you were the safest target, someone she'd already taken from once. Then she said something that cut through the rest of it. She didn't come back because she thought you'd believe her. She came back because she thought you'd feel too guilty to say no. That was the whole engine. The baby, the tears, the lawyer threats, the show at Ren's office. None of it was designed to prove anything. All of it was designed to make me feel guilty enough to fold. I sent Sloan a text that night. Come by the house Saturday at noon. We'll talk about next steps. She replied in under a minute. I'll be there. Saturday came. Noon. The porch camera was on. I had a folder on the counter with every piece of proof I'd collected. Printed vasectomy letter. Printed screenshot of the empty filing search. Printed text logs. Ren sat on the couch in the front room with a book open on her lap, visible from the dining area, but not front and center. The knock came right at noon. Sloan was on the porch with Eli in the carrier. Hair done. Makeup on. Dressed nice. Like she was showing up to sign a lease. She smiled wide. I'm glad you came around. I stepped aside and let her walk in. She went straight past me to the dining table, set the carrier on the floor, sat down, and put her hands flat in front of her like she was about to lead a meeting. She talked for almost 5 minutes straight. A room for her and Eli. Help with diapers and formula. A car seat, because the one she had was borrowed. Maybe later. Help with a car so she could get to work once she found something. Every item framed around the baby. Eli needs this. Eli needs that. Eli deserves better than what I can give him alone. She never once said what she needed. The baby was the shield she held up every time she asked for something for herself. I let her finish. When she stopped and looked at me with those expectant eyes, waiting for me to fold the way she'd always expected, I picked up the folder. I opened it on the table between us and slid the first sheet across. This is the medical confirmation that I had a vasectomy 5 months before Eli would have been conceived. No reversal was performed. She didn't pick it up. She pushed it back with 2 fingers like junk mail. Vasectomies fail. I already told you that. Her voice was calm. Practiced. I didn't react. I slid the next sheet across. This is the search result from the county filing system. There's no paternity case filed. No court date. No lawyer. Her jaw got tight. She stared at it longer than the first one. Then she looked up. I hadn't filed yet. I was giving you a chance to do this the easy way. Her voice was steady, but the edges were starting to fray. I pulled out my phone, opened the voicemail, and pressed play. Alea's voice came through, clear and tired, the way she'd sounded every time I'd talked to her. This is Alea. I'm confirming that my sister Sloan told me directly that she knew you were not Eli's father. She told me she was going to claim you were because you had a house and a stable income. I told her not to do it. I'm willing to repeat this in front of anyone who needs to hear it. The room went dead quiet. Sloan's face went white, all at once, like someone pulled a plug behind her skin. She stared at the phone. Her mouth opened and closed and opened again. Alea doesn't know what she's talking about. She's mad because I was late on rent. Her voice was shaking now, just enough that I could hear it. I said, you were never paying rent. You were living there for free, just like you lived here for free, just like you're trying to do again. Her chair scraped back. She was on her feet, hands gripping the edge of the table, her eyes wet, and her voice cracked for the first time since she walked through my door. Not the practiced crack from the phone Wednesday, a real one. So you're just gonna turn your back on a baby? Look at him. He's right here. She pointed down at Eli, who was asleep with his little fist curled against his cheek, not knowing his mother had carried him into a stranger's house and used him like a key to try and open a door that was never going to open. I looked at Eli, then I looked at Sloan. I said, Eli deserves a real father, and you know who that is, and it's not me. You left his birth certificate blank because you didn't want the real one involved. That's not my problem to fix. Her face changed. The performance fell away. The soft voice, the sad eyes, the struggling mother routine, all of it slid off her like a coat she couldn't hold on to anymore. What was underneath was just a woman who had run out of moves. She grabbed the carrier handle. Her lip was trembling. You're going to regret this. I said, I already have one regret, Sloan. I trusted you with everything I had, and you sold it at a flea market. I'm not making that mistake again. Don't come back. Don't go to Ren's job. Don't contact either of us. If you do, the next folder I open will be in front of a judge, and your sister will be sitting next to me. She looked past me into the front room. Ren hadn't moved. She was looking right back, steady, unblinking, the way you watch something you've already figured out. Sloan held the look for 2 seconds. Then she turned, walked to the front door, pulled it open, and stepped out onto the porch. She didn't slam it. She didn't look back. She didn't say another word. I closed the door and turned the deadbolt. The lock caught. Ren turned a page. I went back to work on Monday.